Hello, my gorgeous ladies. Welcome to another episode for Lingerie and Lattes. It's Olivia Drumaga. I founded Vulcanability back in 2020 in order for women to have a guide in experiencing pleasure within their bodies and creating harmonious relationships to their monogamous male partners. It is such a top, there's so many topics today that I wanted to cover that I really have to kind of center down and focus on essentially one specific subject that I want to expand on today. So there's a few things I want to share. Well, first of all, we're coming into the newer springtime area within the Northern Hemisphere that I spoke about last week, and there's all this sense of renewal, and there's this excitement for us to slow down and start progressing into our real nature, into the authentic path that we're meant to walk in this earth. Because a lot of times the reason that women feel dissatisfied in their day to day is because we're not really living the life we're supposed to be. We're doing things that are deemed positive or beneficial to us based on society expectations. However, societal expectations have a lot to do with diminishing what it means to be feminine. So if we create this understanding that a woman has more potential, more benefit into the world when we take care of ourselves, when we slow down, when we go about our natural cycles along with life, we can kind of step away from the expectation of how to live life as a man. So men are very good in the business world because a lot of times they have to just completely rely on logic. They have to completely rely on things that are straightforward, straight thinking, really cut and dry. Whereas women really thrive in the creative arts because it is our natural state of being in order to be creative, expansive, fluid, not necessarily rigid and structured. One of the things that I wanted to touch on today was ancient traditions and focusing a little bit of our attention on what our lineage has been in order for us to be more present with the modern day. So while there's always a desire to explore certain cultures, you may have a desire to look into ancient Greece or perhaps ancient Egypt or perhaps anything that is in our calling. I would suggest you can always look into these areas, whether it be Tahitian or things of South American cultures that you're being drawn to. But I want to promote this idea of exploring your own roots and your own culture. So whether that doesn't even have to be a study of it in Google or YouTube or necessarily going out and finding like articles or books written on it, but focusing a little bit more on a family lineage. So if you're starting to notice how much has changed among the generations of your family, that's a good place to start. Maybe connecting a little more to the stories that your grandma can share with you, or your mom can share with you, or if you don't have any of your close relatives because perhaps you were adopted, or perhaps you were removed from your surroundings and that has actually been stamped out in your life, you can follow those intuitive nudges of circling around a map area that you feel pulled to. So this is a little bit different than what I just mentioned, because I said that there's perhaps certain ancient cultures that are calling upon for your attention. And then also there's the one that's related to your lineage. If you know your lineage, I do suggest that you can start with asking traditional family stories that have been shared throughout the generations. I suggest looking into the actual land that where you have come from. Perhaps your grandma was born in a particular village or a particular cultural phenomenon. Going further into that understanding just gives you a lot more context on what gets passed down through those generations and is still present somehow in your life today. So the reason I kind of wanted to bring that up is because there's a lot of wisdom in the ancient world, and a lot of times we can tend to focus on the progress and the beauty of where we are right now as a culture for women, which again, I love because obviously I'm somebody who loves to create businesses. I really like going out there and getting stuff done. So in who I am today would not be acceptable pretty much any other time period in any culture, unless I go really far, far back into potentially the state of the world that was ruled supposedly by women or by the feminine, which again, I'm still questioning whether that is an accurate telling of the story. Because a lot of times we do have structures that resemble a vulva, that resemble a womb space. Women were seen as goddesses back in the day, but again, whether they were treated as such is something that I still question and I don't have the answers to. So noticing how our modern day presentation of women is kind of far from where we were revered as goddesses. So when we were seen as a goddess, we were really appreciated and worshipped for our ability to have that creative stance. Even if you chose not to be a mother, you still birthed something into the world. And that could have been your practice to help with your herbal medicine to your local community. That could have been a bakery that you opened up and shared the local bread. It could have been a gardening thing that you did. Anything that actually supported the community was something that originally came from you. And that sense of womanhood, is something that we've kind of lost touch with. Because now we expect women to simply follow the guidelines of what men have laid out as success and what they have laid out as the right way to live life. And a lot of the time for young women, that means rejecting the idea of motherhood. It means rejecting the idea of being a homemaker. It means rejecting the idea of settling into your role as the beautifier of a home. It separates you from your tradition, from your inner essence. So again, I know a lot of women who have never chosen to be a mother, and yet they still take on the role of the feminine. So it's not necessary for you to be in your feminine and also be a mother. You can choose to step away from that if that is within your path, or you can also become a mother in a sense of creating and birthing things that support your community and benefit it for life for all. The other thing that I wanted to share with you all today is how much we can tap in to our own femininity when we focus on our sensuality. So if we're thinking about the role of a woman and how much it's been deemed inappropriate to be sensual and to be really feeling free in our bodies, we've been skewing this idea of sensuality and kind of vulgarizing it by bringing in this idea of women being able to sleep around just as much as men, or feeling free when they're showing off their bodies, or anything that's become almost misinterpreted, because those specific rules of how a woman should be in order to feel free is actually counterproductive. So the more a woman sleeps around, she does not feel more fulfilled. And even though there's a culture that suggests that having casual sex is a benefit for society and a benefit of woman empowerment, pretty much any individual woman you speak to, if she's being honest with herself, feels more or less like total crap the next day after sleeping with somebody random. And that is because the act of sensuality in itself is sacred. And when we share our bodies with another person, it also means that their energy field is coming into ours, and we're allowing that to come in and influence who we are. So if you don't know anything about the person that you're sharing your body with, you're allowing energies in that otherwise you'd probably be filtering out. When we think about what it means to have power in our sensuality, we could think about it in a different way. What does it mean to be empowered and pleasure and experience pleasure, but also have some modesty, also have some elegance and some reservation with how we project that? That is, to me, a very philosophical and interesting question to explore, because I struggle with this myself. Sometimes I'll do a bit of pole dancing, and it's very difficult for me to simply be in the moment. Even though there's nobody there watching me, there's just the other members of the class that are focused on themselves, it becomes very difficult for me to actually expand into this archetype of sensuality because it feels wrong and it feels unsafe and it feels vulgar. So thinking, and not even thinking, but really reprogramming ourselves in order to feel comfortable in sensuality while also feel protected by not sharing our bodies with the first guy that walks down the street, or without lying to ourselves that the more we sleep around, the better we feel about ourselves. It all comes down to how much more can I show up for myself and worship my own body and my own pleasure before I allow another person into this whole mix. And I was doing a card pull from the wonderful deck of The Rise of Sophia, which my friend has actually created. And this came up, enthusiasm. So enthusiasm reads, you are radiating enthusiasm and full of invigorating ideas. You are ready to take inspired action and are eager to get started. This is a time to relish and play. Let creative pursuits be dipped in paint and slathered onto a canvas. This is the perfect time to create a vision or mood board so that you can see what has been stored in your subconscious mind, just waiting to be birthed. Enthusiasm turns ideas into gold. I absolutely love this card for right now because this is where we want to be with our sensuality. We want to be in a place where we are playing with it and exploring it from a non-judgmental standpoint. So if you're thinking about how do I become more of a sensual creature? How do I feel more comfortable expressing my sexuality? Maybe creating a mood board is exactly what you need. Having the kinds of textures that make you feel sensual. Maybe that's silk, maybe that's lace, maybe that's jersey knit, maybe that's a backless dress. Having something that I suggest, maybe a Pinterest if you want to keep things a little bit more accessible to you to remind yourself of your pleasure state when you're out and about, or actually printing out these images and creating a physical mood board that you can put somewhere in your sacred space and look at every day to remind yourself that your power comes from that sense of pleasure and play. Because when we are in a creative space, we become super receptive. And when we're actually in a place of creativity, of allowing new ideas, of original ideas to come through to us, that's when we're really tapped into with the divine. That's actually when our third eye is open and is able to see things in a clear, new manner. If we want to think of what the subconscious mind has in store for us regarding pleasure, another exercise I would suggest is journaling about it and allowing both the good and the bad to come out. Because we have all more or less had a negative experience regarding a man in this day and age, which has left you feeling uncomfortable. And that's also a duality within our sexuality. That is also why we don't feel super comfortable expressing ourselves, even when it's just you and yourself with the mirror, because those shame and those emotions come up for us. So noticing what happens when you write the word sensuality, maybe it's scared, maybe it's a memory that shows up when you were touched inappropriately, or maybe there was a specific comment made that made you insecure about a certain body part that you have. Any of those things can also be invited into this journaling process, because it's bringing something from the subconscious to your awareness of the conscious mind that allows the shift to happen. And the more we're trying to suppress it, and in my own experience, the more I'm trying to tell myself, like, no, I am sensual and I am comfortable in my skin, and I try to actually use that mindset and play it out with pole, sometimes it doesn't come out as gracefully as I'd want it to. Sometimes it just comes out like a mess because I don't really believe what I'm saying to myself. And if we kind of mine those things from the subconscious into the conscious, at least we're not lying to ourselves. And at least now we can integrate the shadows that we're living with on our daily basis. So having this enthusiastic mindset as we approach our sensuality, seeing what is on this canvas, what creates this idea of sensuality within ourselves. Maybe there's a story that your mom told you that has really pushed you away from experiencing any pleasure in the bedroom. Or maybe there's something, again, that you have uncovered for yourself that's made you super confident in exploring this. Allow those things to show up and simply sit with them for a little bit and notice again how your journey progresses. Noticing what happens when you first notice what has been in your subconscious that maybe you were suppressing. How does it feel to know that you have shame around this part of your body simply based on a single comment that somebody said maybe 5, 6 years ago? Doesn't probably doesn't feel great. Maybe I've always had to struggle with or overcome the struggle of hating my belly section because I've grown up in a household where all I would hear nonstop is, I love my body except for my belly. I just wish it was flatter. Or I love everything about myself except for this. I just really wish I lost that extra weight. And so again, that just ingrained me to be fixated on this particular area of my body that had absolutely nothing to do with sensuality in a sense. I mean, many times we overblow a specific subject as women because we think it matters, when truly we're talking about monogamous relationships where a loving, supportive partner probably doesn't care or doesn't even see it the same way as we do. And again, we have to remind ourselves it's not about being validated by the other person. It's about having that internal change that changes your perception of yourself and therefore unblocks your mind to receive the pleasure that's available to you in your body. Thank you so much, my gorgeous woman. I'll see you all next week for Lingerie and Lattes.